While Fusion has a pedigree as a studio-quality visual effects compositing tool, it also can be used to great effect for creating animated titles and graphics, otherwise known as motion graphics. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to composite text, animate it, then track it to a shot. It'll be loads of fun. If you're already in the Fusion page, you do not need to go back to the Edit page to access your timelines or clips related to your timelines. In the upper left of the UI, you'll see the same media pool that you'll find on the other pages. Select it, then the Timeline Smart Bins. Double-click the Lesson 15 timeline. The image that appears in the viewer is the frame the playhead was last parked over. To choose a different clip from that timeline, click the Clips button. A thumbnail timeline appears with every clip that's being used in that timeline. Select Clip 02, then close the Clips view and the media pool. Center up the node tree by middle-clicking and dragging. Make sure the media out node is sending its image to viewer 2. Click in the gray area to deselect any nodes. To add some text, you'll use a text node. Click the T icon on the toolbar. In the text input box of the inspector, type Hello. As you learned in the last lesson, nodes need to be connected to the processing tree, but they need to be connected in a certain way. This text node has one input and one output. Drag from the output and connect it to the input of the media out node. Now we see our text, but we lost the image from the media in node. I'll undo that. So what happens if we connect the text node's output to the media in's mask input? Now the text is being used as a mask, which is cool and something you may want to do at some point, but that's not what we want to do at the moment. I'll undo that. In order to composite the text over video, you'll need to use a separate node called a merge node. Merge nodes are one of the most important tools in Fusion because it combines two images together. Move the mouse pointer over each tool in the toolbar to reveal tooltips with the tool's name. The merge node is the first one located in this group of compositing and transform tools. Drag the tool over the connection line until it highlights. Then release your mouse. A merge node has three inputs. The yellow input is used for the background, the green input is used for the foreground, and the blue input is used for effects masks. Notice that the output of the media in node is connected to the merge node's background input. So that leaves the foreground input available for our text node. Connect the output to the green input. The circuit is now complete and the text appears over the background in the viewer because the merge out node is combining the image data from both nodes, then sending the composite image to the media out node. Select the text and merge nodes and delete them because there's an even faster way to do this. Select the media in node, then click the text tool. When a node is selected, Fusion assumes you want to composite text with a background and automatically adds a merge node and creates all the connections for you. Cool. Drag the merge node up and down. Notice that the inputs change locations on the node. It may be a bit confusing at first, but Fusion does this so that connection lines will never overlap one another. The point is, a green input is still an input, regardless of whether it appears at the top of a node or below it. I still prefer to organize my nodes in a visual hierarchy, so I like placing my text node above the node that's sending the background. And remember, you can always name the nodes. Select the media in node, press F2, and name it background. Select the text node, press 1 to send it to the left viewer, then in the inspector, enter Nelson 2021. Pick a font. I'm going to use Futura and choose Bold. One item that you won't find in this list of controls is a drop shadow. Drop shadows need to be applied as a separate node. With the text node still selected, press Shift Spacebar, then enter Drop in the search field. Click Add. The drop shadow node is inserted between the text node and the merge nodes. With the drop shadow node selected, press 2 to see both the text and shadow in the left viewer. In the inspector, drag the shadow strength slider to the right and the blur slider to the left. Use the drop angle slider and the drop distance sliders to move the shadow where you want it relative to the text. Now let's animate the text. Select the text node, Then right-click inside the text box, and from the menu, choose Follower. The follower is a text behavior modifier that allows you to animate text parameters in sequence. Click the Modifiers button at the top of the inspector. There are 5 buttons along the top. The first one, and the one that's selected by default, controls the text timing. The Range pop-up allows you to choose a range of characters to animate or a defined set of characters. Let's leave this set for All Characters. The Order menu determines the direction of your text animation. We'll leave this at left to right. The Delay controls how long each character waits before the next character starts animating. We'll leave the delay type at the default and the delay at 0. Next, we'll jump over to the Transform panel. In this section, you can choose individual characters, words, or even entire lines to be transformed by the animation. We'll stick with characters. Spill open the rotation controls. I want the letters to rotate along the y-axis. But before we do anything, we need to move the playhead to the frame we want the animation to start. Click into the current frame field and enter 10, then hit Return. The playhead jumps to frame 10 in the clip. Click in the Node Editor to exit the frame field. Set a keyframe next to the Y rotation parameter. You can drag on the dial for the Y rotation, but it's just easier to enter a value. In the input field, enter -90 and press Return. Move the playhead to frame 30 by entering it into the current frame field. To reset the Y rotation back to its default location, click the tiny white dot below the wheel. Because we already set the first keyframe at frame 10, a second keyframe is automatically added at frame 30. Disable the audio, then play that back. Nice, but I want the text to fade in. Move the playhead to the beginning of the clip by pressing Command left arrow. Go back to the Tools palette, then click the Shading button. The shading controls how your text appears, its color, its softness, rotation, and so on. Here, you'll find the opacity controls. Set a keyframe for opacity, then drag the slider all the way to the left. Move the playhead to frame 20, then drag the opacity slider to the right. Let's play that back. Very nice. By the way, these white hash marks in the ruler indicate where we have keyframes set. In order to change the position of the keyframes, and thus make your animations faster or slower, you'll need to reveal the Keyframes editor by clicking the button in the upper right of the window. A keyframe graph appears to the right of the Node Editor. In order to see your animation as graphical timing bars, click the Zoom to Fit button. Along the left are all the nodes being used in the composite, and colored bars indicate each node as it appears over time. The numbers from 0 to 75 are frame numbers, matching the frame spread in the time ruler. Click the disclosure triangle next to text to reveal the keyframes. On the top are the follower keyframes, which is creating the rotating letters, and below are the opacity keyframes. Let's make the character rotation happen over a longer segment of time. Select the second keyframe. It will turn yellow to indicate that it's selected. Drag it to the right to frame 40. To move the keyframe as a group, click and drag between the keyframes. Drag until the first keyframe is at frame 0. Then position the playhead at frame 0 and play back. Great! Now close the keyframe editor. While this animation is certainly cool, it could be made even cooler by tracking the text. After all, the camera is moving. Use the on-screen controls to move the text lower in the frame. Click on the Tools button at the top of the inspector. Then click the Layout button. Right-click on the word Center, then choose Modify with Tracker Position. Move the tracker over the bus engine hood. When you have it roughly in position, click the Modifiers button. The tracking controls appear at the bottom of the inspector. But currently, there's no preview image for the tracker. This is because we've not yet provided a tracker source. Right-click on the words Tracker Source and choose Connect to, Background, Output. Now we see the preview image. Use the offset wheels to move the text out of the way so you can get to the tracker controls. Move the tracker while watching the preview image. You want the target near the edge of the hood. Adjust the pattern width and height. Now click the Track Forward button. Then click OK once the render is completed. In the inspector, make sure you can see the Track 1 modifier. Then use the X and Y offset wheels to position the text just below the fender in the lower left third of the frame. Play the clip after it's fully cached, and you'll see the text now does a subtle movement to the left along with the camera's dolly move. And for our final step, let's scale the image so that the white van on the left of the frame is not visible. So if we look at our current node tree, we have text data flowing into a drop shadow node, which then feeds a merge node, where those text elements are combined with the background before being sent to the media out node. We need to add a transform node after the merge node, but before the media out node. That way, all of these nodes can be fed into the transform and manipulated as one image. If you're familiar with After Effects, this is very much like pre-comping your layers. Select the merge node, then click the transform node on the toolbar. Press 1 to send it to the left viewer. With the node selected, drag on the size slider. Notice that all image data leaving the merge node is being affected by the slider adjustment. In the size field, enter 1.25 and press return. One great thing about the Edit Page to Fusion page workflow is that Fusion sends the highest resolution image to be processed. The image that is feeding the media in node, which is currently named background, is the original UHD source clip, even though we sent the image from an HD timeline. In the upper right corner of the left viewer, you can see the original clip resolution you're working on. Press the spacebar to play the clip. Great! Let's return to the Edit page to see our composite in the context of the edit. So right now I'm in a Ghost. Now that our effects work is done, it's time to move to the color page to begin the process of color grading.